Hello and welcome to the Practical Shaman podcast. My name is Renee Baribeau, and today I have a very interesting guest with us. His name is Howard Charing. And did I say that right?
You said it perfectly. Thank you.
Perfect. And over the last 30 years, he's become acknowledged as an international workshop leader on shamanism. He's an author and a visionary artist. For over 20 years, he's worked with some of the most respected and extraordinary shamans and elders in the Andes, the Amazon rainforest, and the Philippines. He has run trainings and development courses on behalf of the prestigious Foundation for Shamanic Studies, and for many years worked with Eagle's Wing Center for Contemporary Shamanism, one of the foremost training organizations in Europe. He is also qualified as a pre-birth therapist and a whole self at the Whole Self Institute. And he was born in London and lived in the Netherlands, the US, and Peru, and is now in Romania. And he was in the computer industry. So that would be a nice conversation for how you went from computers to ayahuasca. That was kind of a curious subject. And he's written
Yeah.
many books. The Amazon's Angels Oracle, which is what we're here to talk about. This is his new book. But I'd love to hear about a little bit more about the ayahuasca visions of Pablo Amaringo, the accidental shaman, and plant spirit shamanism. And something about your visionary artist, which I think we can see right behind us. So
Well, this works in progress. Yeah.
welcome. How
Thank
are
you.
you today?
I'm very well. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on your show, by the way.
Oh, it's really great. I used your deck before we'd really even gotten a chance to speak. I'm there like I think I'm going to pull one of these cards, and it was like a welcome surprise because I get invited to interview a lot of people, and they're like, wow, these cards are really special. And I say that because I've been looking to do the Wind Spirit deck for a long time, and when I opened up your cards, they just really spoke to me in a way that a lot of cards don't speak to me. So tell me about the one that I pulled today.
No, that's Tak Schiller. He's the angel of the mineral realm, and what he's a very interesting angel because we're going through a time now in the past 120 years when the mineral realm and humanity are becoming closer and closer. And I talk about this in the actual narrative of the angel before I give the reading. But we're in a time right now that, well, we're talking on computers. That's all done by crystalline silicon. The whole thing we can communicate with, the whole thing that's changing humanity, the phones, the internet, and so on, all runs on minerals. And so going through this time, there's a fusion between humanity and the mineral realm. And in this card, we discuss one of the things that us as a culture, we tend to see minerals, rocks, crystals, and so on as inorganic, as in inanimate, but they are the first stage of the life force of spirit entering the material realm. Everything depends on the minerals, the plants, animals, and humans. In fact, our bodies are dependent on 40 to 50 different types of minerals. So minerals are a part of our lives, but now we're starting to move even closer. When you read about the transhumanist movement, which is a fusion of computer technology and human brains and so on, with the idea, guys like Elon Musk, they've been talking about this. The idea is to upload your consciousness to the cloud and you'll live forever. I mean, this is not just it was a fantasy, like science fiction fantasy, but now people are spending billions of dollars in research on this transhumanism thing, implanting chips in people. That's going to happen. It happens in some countries, implant chips and so on. So the mineral realm and the and humanity are coming closer and closer, and it's a new step in our evolution as a species. So, and Takshay Shiller really talks about this, and if you take the card and you have there's two readings per angel, so in total there's 66 readings.
I liked that about that there was more that like that I could start in one place and go to another place. You just said something really interesting about Elon Musk and uploading consciousness into the cloud. Haven't the shamans been doing that forever?
Well, I mean, the terminology is different. We don't the word cloud is yeah, of course, shamans through various practices and so on, and not just shamans, but people these days participating in various plant ceremonies, ayahuasca, and so on and so forth, are able to connect to a higher, different level of consciousness, and that can happen through a shamanic journey or other meditative technique. But one of the things with the mineral realm is that it's a part of an individual kind of spiritual renaissance with people. People find the angel oracle is symbolic of this. Uh, many years ago, I think back in the 70s, people started to produce oracle decks and so on, and people become more interested in the tarot and divination. And so there's a movement away from organized institutional religions and spiritual groups to a much more personal thing. And the angel oracle, what we're talking about here, is part of this as well. So it's a
So,
big movement, and this is part of it.
so tell me, what brought you to putting it together in a 33 cards and 66 readings? What inspired that movement for you?
Well, yeah, I've worked with Pablo Amaringo for many years. I did the book, The Ayahuasca Visions of Pablo Amaringo. It's a very big, beautiful book with gorgeous pictures in there and lovely narratives and stories. And about 5-6 years ago, I was visiting Pablo died in 2009. I was visiting his family about 5 years ago, and I came across some Pablo sketches. He did sketches and studies before he put them in the main paintings. And he has some beautiful sketches of angels. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to work with these angels? I had a nice feeling about this. And although there's no original artwork by Pablo in the book, he certainly gave that inspiration. And it was so I came back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, sorry. And I made a few narratives. I had a few angels drawn up by the graphics people and so on. And then I did other things. It sat in a box, literally on a shelf. And then comes the pandemic, and I'm in lockdown. I can't go anywhere, and I've got back from Peru. It took me 3 extra flight tickets to get back. I returned back, and I do a shamanic divination journey to find out how long this is going to go on for. When will my life return back to normal? And the information was October 2021, and this is in March 2020. So I thought, oh my God, I've got to do something. I mean, I'll go bonkers, And that night I had a dream, and the dream was like an angel, and he just smiled and said, "Now's the time." And I knew exactly what it was. And the following morning, I got up, took the box from the shelf, and blew the dust off, literally, and that's how it started. So I'm very appreciative, of the lockdowns and all the things associated. Otherwise, I would never have done it. So it's a gift from the pandemic. I can say that.
It's funny, some people during the pandemic got all of this time to create and explore, and then some of us got doubled down on the workload. Like I have not stopped, there was never a break. So how lucky for you that you got that time to do that. How did you find your way from computers to shamanism and being in Peru and all of that?
Well, back in 1984, I was in an elevator crash, and I broke my neck and suffered severe injuries. And then during this accident, I had a near-death experience, and that everything changed from there. I was out of action. I was laid up for about 18 months, but my life had really changed. All sorts of mystical and strange things were happening around me. It was very difficult. I didn't understand what was going on. I knew it was real, but I didn't know what it was. And much later, I discovered it was shamanism, and that's what drew me to that. But it was the accident that really changed my life in the elevator. So so I can say, that was nearly 40 years ago. So I can say my life changed. It was a pivotal moment in my life. There's a Howard before and there's a Howard after. But the accident in the elevator was the key to it. Yeah.
Well, I have a question. So, were those things happening before and you weren't listening and it took the elevator crash to get you to listen? Or was it the elevator crash was the impetus?
The elevator crash was the impetus. I was definitely in a different kind of frame of mind. I was more materialistic, material kind of orientated and so on, career orientated. But the elevator crash was a catastrophe at the time. I mean, I was being very fit and sporty, and I couldn't even stand up. I couldn't support the weight of my head on my shoulders, anything like this. It was very, very painful as well. I was in pain for months and months and months. But things happened, and magical things happened, and which I describe in the book, The Accidental Shaman. I give my story, how it happened, and so on. So it was the near-death experience that I was gone. I was gone somewhere else. I was somewhere else completely. And then I thought, I realized, no, I want to live. I really want to live. Then I'm back again, back in my body. And this isn't the elevator that's crashing at terminal velocity, 11.7 meters a second, but time stopped. Time completely stopped. And I tried all sorts of things. Well, if I jump up in the air, I'll be in the air, but of course you can't move up because you're in free fall as well. And then I just knew exactly what I had to do, precisely. I took my bag of tissues and put them on my mouth like this, and I got on my haunches. And as soon as I had done that, the lift, usual time, was restored, and the lift smashed into below the basement. If I hadn't had the tissues in my mouth, my tongue would have been chopped off, because the first thing was my jaw smashed against my upper jaw. If my tongue was anywhere near that, I would have lost the tongue. And by going into a crouch position, my body absorbed the shock, even though it was devastating. But if I just stood up, I'd have been tongueless and dead at the same time. So that alone was a magical experience. And it took a long time for me to kind of physically recover, emotionally recover, because I became zombie-like for a long time. I was there, but I was just sitting by the window looking at leaves fall from trees and things. But some magical things did happen to me, and they shifted everything. And I think the key thing which really lifted a huge weight from me, was forgiveness. When I forgave the elevator engineers for doing maintenance on the lift system without shutting it down, because they were doing some maintenance on the lift, on the elevator. Yeah, but I was really angry about that. But when I forgave, it felt like 10 tons of weight lifted from me. And then things started to happen. I started to see things. I started to perceive kind of another reality. So it was the forgiveness that lifted this cloud from me, and the things changed from there. So, but that was the pivotal moment of my change. Nearly 40 years ago now. It's been a long time. And the crazy thing is this: if I knew then what would happen, even though the pain and change of my life, I think now in hindsight, I would still step in that elevator. I'll still do it, because my life is changing ways which would never have been possible. And it's the beautiful things have happened. So yeah, that's good.
It's interesting. You're saying that you'd step back into that elevator. I was just wondering if you would get on any elevator.
Yeah, well, I was very conscious of elevators after the accident, but I'm okay now. I even stepped back in that same elevator as well later on.
That must have been a time.
It was something I had to do. So I just had to do that. It was okay.
I think that's really good wisdom for people who, that sometimes you do have to get back on that horse or that bicycle or whatever, the elevator, when, but you mentioned something about the forgiveness. I mean, forgiveness is such a powerful act of grace. I mean, it's just, we sometimes we don't understand that forgiveness is the key to happiness and everything else about our human experience most of the time. It's so crucial. Is there a forgiveness angel in the book?
No, there isn't. No.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's an angel of grace in there.
Right. Well, grace can do so
and
much.
that touches on forgiveness and other topics, but not an angel of forgiveness per se. Yeah.
I guess maybe we don't need one. We just need grace. Did you? So you've written other books, and so do you think that? Is this your finest work, or how does this compare to your other books? What do you love about this book the most, or this whole project? Because it's more than a book.
Yeah, it's what I like about that particular project, the cards and so on, is the feeling of the warmth from the cards. The cards have such a warmth. When I first opened up, I just felt the warmth. I felt something here open, and that was such a nice feeling. But I have to say, the Ayahuasca Visions of Pablo Amaringo is my magnus opus. That's a huge book, and it's a real testament, a legacy to one of the most wonderful, beautiful persons I've ever met in my life. And he was a master in the true sense of the word. And I'm just very, very happy that I've been able to promote his legacy, bring his work into a much larger audience, help to support his family as well. So it's Pablo, and also the oracle decks, the color palettes, and many of the ideas are based on Pablo's work. And so there is a thread connecting Pablo Amaringo to these cards as well. And one of the angels, I think the angel of trees, Atun Malka Caspi, is based on a story that Pablo told me many years ago. He told me a story when he was an apprentice, and he was in an ayahuasca ceremony, and the spirit asked him, "Do you know the difference between an old man and an old tree?" He didn't know, and the spirit went on to explain the whole story. What the old tree is like, a fortress, a sanctuary to all forms of animals and life. It serves the entire community, plants, animals, insects, everything, and humans. Humans come to the tree, they take their plants and the barks for medicinal purposes. And he said that's what an old man is. An old person reaches towards, becomes an elder. Their role is to support the community. And that was such a beautiful story. I mean, I've just given you a synopsis of the story. I mean, it's such a lovely story. But that was an anecdote he told me, and I remembered that anecdote. I wrote it down, made little notes of it, and I was just so happy. I thought, yeah, this is a great story, a fabulous, beautiful piece of wisdom. And it's kind of, and so I make the angel to go with the story. So there is a very, very strong link between Pablo Amaringo and this oracle deck. And if I were to and I worked with two artists. One person did the graphic, put into computer graphics from sketches, and another guy did the coloring. So if I put some of these cards against Pablo's paintings, you'll see the color palette is really matching. It's very beautiful.
No, the colors are, I mean, what you talked about was that feeling when you opened them. Again, I like opened it and I'm like, oh, and when I started to look at them, there was like they came alive, and that's like such a true testimony of the energy that can be transferred with something that's really done in that alignment with spirit. So I felt that in your cards, and that's
Yeah,
why I wanted to interview you.
that's lovely, because I mean I had that same feeling when I opened up the deck for the first time. I was
And
just struck by the warmth I received from those cards, those images. It's
they're
beautiful.
absolutely stunning, all of them. I really highly recommend everyone order a set of these. Let me show you the box so you can see them. And they're available everywhere. So,
Yeah.
okay. The I have a question that's a little bit off topic, but it's relevant. That the I work in a behavioral health care organization, and there's a real big movement now to do the plant medicines, in many of them for mental health and addiction and things like that. Well, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's how the plants are coming into the West. I mean, for me, I've been going to where it comes from and participating in that kind of ceremonial work from their perspective. And but it's understandable that the plant medicines will reach out to the Western mind and help us as well. So there is a real convergence of plant consciousness and human consciousness. The times are changing. They are really are changing. I was talking about um, mineral realms, and now we've got the plant realm. Everything's, in some respect, is coming closer together, and that's just going to shift, change, transform humanity. It takes many, many years, but it's already happening. We're seeing it with our own eyes.
Yeah, because it's kind of, I mean, I guess I've had a little bit of a judgment around it, being that, that I had to travel so far for my spiritual help. And that now, I mean, I'm very pleased that these young psychiatrists are more open to than they were, 30 some years ago when I needed psychiatric help. But I'm also concerned about whether or not we're taking, and you just kind of answered that a little bit, whether or not we're taking this, the shaman who gave you the medicine, who was there facilitating and holding space. But you just said something about the plant consciousness that I hadn't really been thinking about, that the plant has a consciousness. And
Absolutely.
whether or not the psychiatrist is giving it to it, exploring it, the plant itself has the relationship with the patient.
Yeah, well, let me also want to say something else as well. I mean, people say, oh, the ayahuasca is going to cure me. Ayahuasca is not going to cure you.
Mm-mm.
Ayahuasca is going to open you up to show you, to release, to reveal that which is stopping you from being healed. It's like it's an agent, it's a catalyst for change. It's not doing the healing. You're doing the healing, or the spiritual energies around doing the healing, but the plant is a catalyst. It opens you up to what is blocking you, what is the problem, but you still have to deal with this. And the plant really helps for a person to purge it or to clear it and to shift it and so on. So, and that's not just with hallucinogenic plants. A lot of other plants you can work with in the Amazon, for example, plant diets. And these plants are very, very powerful. And they're not going to, well, let me tell you a story. So I'm in the jungle and I'm dieting plants. And I diet this plant, I forget the name of it now, but it's colloquially known as the Zen plant. And the idea is this plant, you diet it for 4 or 5, 6 days. You have very little food, so the plant and you meld, you just spend time with the plant. And the idea is that's going to make you relax, Zen-like, meditative. I thought that sounds nice. I'll give that a try. What happened? What happened? All hell let loose. I was angry, furious, raging because I didn't like the way the plant was working, and it's like the plant was trying to kind of sedate me, and I didn't like that feeling. And of course, the lesson I learned was the plant showed me what's stopping me from achieving that Zen-like meditative place. It was kind of a funny thing, but sometimes it shows you what's needed to change. It helps you to shift what needs to change, but you still do the change. You still do the work. It's not a magic bullet. It's not like a pharmaceutical, which pharmaceutical changes you. No, the plant allows you to make that change. There's a very, very big difference between, so shall we say, kind of a psychiatric medicine and natural plant medicine. So yeah, there's a big learning curve, and there's some very good people who are working with this, and some very smart people who have got new insights and things. So I'm very, very optimistic this is going to be done very correctly, and it needs to be done correctly. It's not something that you give hallucinogenic to somebody and let them get on with it. No, you've got to take care of them, got to sit with them, you've got to help them get through their difficulties and so on, help them to integrate it and analyze it. So yeah, but I don't do that. I mean, I just go with the thing, go to the jungle and do it. But I think it's got a great future, and I think it can help a lot of people, and it really is. I mean, a lot of people suffering from PTSD are finding a huge amount of benefit with ayahuasca and so on. So yeah.
So do you still go to the jungle a lot and work with plant medicines?
Yeah, I still do. I haven't been for a couple of years because of the COVID thing. And I don't want to go quarantine. I don't want to have all the paraphernalia and all that kind of stuff, But I plan to go. I think in a couple of months' time, I'll be going for a while.
Nice.
Now things are easier, So
Yeah, it seems to be opening back up.
yeah, it's starting to open up again, and travel's become a lot easier than it was like last year. Yes, I plan to resume that. But it's more of like I'm following a call. It's not like, oh yeah, I must go and do this. It's like, yeah, I feel drawn to it. I think that's the best thing to say.
Yeah, I understand that. There recently, a piece of work came up, and I thought, like, it might be time to visit the medicine again, and because to me, it's always been a process where you do the medicine, and then, like you said, you do the work.
Yeah.
There's always like that, and recently, like, the medicine just showed up in the living room. I was lying on the bed up in my new bedroom, and all of a sudden, it was like, wow, I was just transported somewhere. This is kind of, I mean, because we forget that it's a relationship that continues, and it's not
Yeah.
just a one and done. So tell me, my other last question is like, how would you suggest that it would be best for people to work with this deck of yours?
Well, it's an oracle, so when you work with any oracle, any divinatory method, you have to have an issue or a question. I mean, you don't have to, but that's the purpose. You have an issue, a problem, and you want some insight. You want some kind of a different perspective, maybe more philosophical. You want to know, why is this happening? what's going on, where can it go, what's stopping me, all these kind of questions and so on and so forth. And you ask an oracle. Oracles go back thousands of years. I mean, go back to ancient Greece, other ancient civilizations all had oracles. So it's the same principle. It's not about telling the future. It's about taking an understanding of the circumstances that you're experiencing and why you're experiencing it and what you can do. An oracle, so you have a question or an issue, you bring to the oracle in your mind, you maybe speak it out, you do a card spread, or you take out one card, and you'll find you'll get some kind of reflection that's going to help you, even just a few words. I mean, I know so many people who have got so much benefit from these kind of tarot and oracle and divination. Myself as well. It's not just other people, me too. So, and even a couple of instances when I was doing this, making this thing, I had a couple of things come up, and I thought, well, I'll ask the oracle. And there were no cards then. There were just, I was on my computer, so I closed my eyes and whisked the mouse button up and down and click, and it was just a perfect message for me. You know, it was just a beautiful message, and it really changed something. So that's how you approach an oracle. Yeah.
So I have a book, Winds of Spirit, and in the back there's 32 wind gods and goddesses, and you know, it's the same thing as sometimes when I was writing the book, I'd have a question about the writing, and I would pull a wind spirit. They were on slips of paper at that point, and it would be like, okay, like, oh, I'm going to leave this wind out, and it's like that's the next wind I'd pull or something like that. So I totally relate with what you're saying on that. So tell us about how people can reach you, and how, if they want to learn more about your work, where do we find you?
I've got a website. I've got angels and other books and workshops and links and so on and so forth. It's www.hgcharing.com.
Okay, and I'll put that in the below here when you're looking at YouTube. The links will be in the description as well.
That'd be fantastic. I look forward to seeing the link as well. Thank you.
All right, and thank you so much for taking your time today, and for taking the time during that period to put this together, because it's really beautiful. And for those who are listening, I would highly recommend this Amazonian Angel Oracle. It's probably one of the first oracles that I've seen in a while that I would really say run out and buy.
Thank you very much. It's a lovely message. Thank you. Well, look, thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Okay.
We'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Renee. Bye.